WFIU, Bloomington, Indiana, where you don't need to be an expert if you learn something new every day.
Never let it be said that Ernie Pyle didn't like visiting home back in Dana, Indiana. But sometimes a visit home can cause a person to want to run out the back door screaming. The roads of home have old grooves that are meant to catch a tire and throw you in a ditch. For Ernie, his parents were a moral anchor tied around his neck. He and Jerry were no longer country people. They were of the big city now, with big city responsibilities and a big city routine. He never let his parents forget it either. A visit home was always brief, with a lot of time spent alone writing. They didn't stay long enough to fall back into old habits, or to let regrets and confessions spoil the moment, or to let his folks feel sorry for themselves about such things. Especially his mother.
Hello, I'm Ernie Pyle, the Hoosier Vagabond, and this is that girl who rides with me.
Here we go again.
Welcome to the Ernie Pyle Experiment, Episode 3, The Snake Story. Let's listen in as Ernie introduces the recording machine to his folks.
So what am I even looking at here?
Maria, listen. Put your lips on that thing there.
No, don't put your lips on anything.
What am I supposed to do?
Just talk.
Just say something like it weren't even there.
That doesn't make any sense.
It takes getting used to.
You say we can hear ourselves talking?
Yes, in a minute. Just keep talking.
I can't hear anything.
I don't like it. That was not me.
Oh, yes, it was.
Who else would it be?
Well, I don't know. I'll be. Will, is that what I sound
Well,
like?
sure. But I'm a little concerned about who that old man was talking to you.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't like it.
I'm with you, Mom. It's a pain in the neck.
Well, a person ain't meant to hear themselves like that.
Well, it's the future.
It sure is something. I just don't see the practicality
Well,
of
I
something
think
like
folks might like to hear what each other has to say.
that. Since when?
Yeah, since when?
Ma, don't touch the knobs. Don't touch the...
What am I supposed to do?
Just talk.
Just say something like it weren't even there.
That doesn't make any sense. That is not me. It's just not me.
Where the heck did you get this?
It's one of the those muckety-muck big thinkers and scripts.
Does that sound like me? Do I really sound like that?
Sort of do, Maria.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't anybody ever say anything? I sound like a squirrel in a hole.
That monkey muck's some kind of genius.
Yeah.
I don't like it one
There's
bit.
something like
not
that,
one
Dad.
bit. And you're not doing it again,
Mom,
are you?
please don't touch the machine.
Well, it's moving, so I know you're doing it again too.
Nobody's doing anything
No,
to
you're
you,
doing
Mom.
it to yourself if you just stop talking.
No, I've tried that. I've been saying it for years.
Oh, well.
Maria, please calm down.
Oh. Hey, let me hear myself again.
What is it, Mom? What happened?
Well, I just don't understand why nobody ever told me I sound like a mean old crow.
Turn
Oh.
that thing off. Maria, come back.
Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. Got something for you. Want some?
Say, sure.
So you're still a drinking man, I suppose.
I suppose. So you got this to keep me in the house then?
I know nothing of what you say. Drink up.
Hey, well, look at this. This is Granddad's cherry pie.
It's going around.
I know it. It's very good.
Bobby stopped by earlier. Word got out you'd be here, you know.
Oh, I bet.
We need to skip before they come back. Your mom sees this in the house, I'll get into trouble. She doesn't know Bobby stopped by yesterday. He had to park out behind the barn, and I met him there for the transaction. I hide in plain sight here because she knows all my hiding places out in the barn. Your mother hates to bake, so I put it behind a bag of flour in plain sight. I used to hide it behind a molasses jar. We both ate molasses, and that jar hadn't moved in 25 years. But she found it. So I know that's the first place she'd look if she saw Bobby Webster come by.
Sure.
Come on, you can drink this out in the barn.
Yes, yeah, let's go.
They're gone. You want a little sneak drink?
What? I'd love a little sneak drink.
Oh, don't you dare tell Ernest.
I never tell him anything anyway.
I think you might like this. I hide it behind the molasses or Will would find it. He hates molasses.
Well, that's Granddad's cherry pie.
Cheers!
Cheers! Aren't you having some with me?
Oh, honey, you know I won't. But I knew you were coming, so...
So you got it to keep me in the house.
Oh, I'm not saying anything. Just enjoy it.
I will.
Well, anyway, how you know about Granddad's cherry pie?
We saw Bobby Webster yesterday.
Well, Bobby came by here yesterday. Will doesn't know it. I don't let him sell it to Will.
Why not?
He doesn't drink. But if it's around, he'll start inviting the neighbors over.
You don't want the neighbors over?
Oh, no. No, I just want to be at home. Nothing like getting to a moment of the day when you get to sit and stare out the window. Oh, maybe find a few moments without yourself making you think yourself isn't worthy of sitting there and staring out that window.
Oh, no, Mom.
Yeah, that you should be pulling your weight somewhere. You have to let yourself into those moments. You have to steal them and hold them, and don't give them away so easily, because we don't let each other have them. Whenever we see someone sitting there staring out the window, we judge them harshly for it. Whoa, they should be doing something. Boy, aren't they lazy. No. Yeah, and all that. And then that old judge comes out when we take a moment. Well, we're just too hard on ourselves, that's what. You let yourself have it, that's what I say. And if I have to work all day and I don't get to stare out any windows, and Will invites the neighbors over, and I have them swept the porch and dusted and straightened, well, forget it. I get ornery. And what do you mean you saw Bobby Webster yesterday?
Yeah, that's right.
But you didn't get in until this morning.
Oh.
Fess up.
We were here yesterday afternoon.
Oh, so. Let me get this straight. You never stay a day later when you come, no matter how I plead. The day you leave is set in stone.
Oh, Mom.
Well, when I could have had Ernie here on the day he said he'd be here and have a full 3 days with him, boy, why would you decide to come to town and not come to the house right away as fast as you can?
I don't do the driving, Mrs. Pyle.
Oh, I don't do the driving, Mrs. Pyle, to me, Mrs. Pyle. You do the driving. You do the driving, don't you?
From the passenger seat?
From the passenger seat.
I suppose, but Maria, he's composing. He stops us out by a nearby creek past town, the one he used to fish.
Yeah, Mr. Webster's pasture.
That's right. And when he starts composing, he'll walk around, talk to himself, and then when he starts, I don't get in the way. He might ask me some questions, maybe a definition or word or something like that. He tries other things out on me once in a while, a turn of a phrase or whatnot. Well, when he used to be a copy editor back home...
This is back home.
Well, when he was a copy editor, that meant that he had to come up with these headlines on everybody's stories, and I used to help him with that. That was fun. Offbeat cop, drum's wife, stuff like that. That was mine. It's good, right? So much fun.
Well, whose team are you on? You should have steered him here.
You know how it is. He gets here and he forgets about writing.
Well, he should. Well, for a time at least. Well, I got ways to make him work when I need him to, you know. I can get him to write here, too.
I know.
He can write here.
I know.
So I don't want to hear it. Anyway, have you thought about where you're going to end up when all this moving around gets old?
Well, he does. I don't think about it too much.
He wants to move back here sometime, doesn't he? Well, I've got some ideas on that. There's a place on the other side of Dana with 200 acres and all the sheds, coops, and lean-tos one would need.
You don't say.
Why not? He can write here just as well as anywhere else.
True, but the whole job, Mom, is predicated upon us being out on the road in America. Remember? A story, different place each time.
No, but everybody needs a home to come back to keep your stuff, your winter clothes and
We
things.
have a place in Washington, Mom.
Well, now look, I've been thinking about that. Washington is all the way on one side of America. And you and Ernest drive all over, north, south, east, and west. Well, don't you? And wouldn't it be nice to have home be located dead center?
Well, don't go getting logical on me.
And then there's the old Wilkerson place on Parkwood Avenue. It has 2 stories and a carriage house, big enough for a family. And the carriage house can be made into an office for Ernest to write in. That way the kids would stay out of his way. Well, or one. Just one is fine. Oh, I get it. In town is too close. Heck, there's Montezuma if you don't want to be too close. There's a whole bunch of homes for sale.
I'm not ready.
Not ready?
I'm just not ready to do the dishes.
Oh, are you judging me now?
What?
Don't worry about those. Will was supposed to get them. Here, I'll get to them.
No, not now. I mean ever.
Oh, sure. I can hear you judging me. It's 9 o'clock and she hadn't done her
You
dishes.
can leave him to rot for all I care.
Left for who?
It's the idea of the thing, Mom.
Well, I know the idea. But you have to have both. You work, you rest. You want to be at rest all the time?
It's not that I want to be at rest. It's that I don't want to be at work.
Oh, you.
Here, let me help you. I can practice.
When's the last time you did dishes?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Oh,
I don't rightly know.
Well, then sit. I can't have you breaking anything.
As you wish.
I hate doing the dishes.
See? You understand me.
I ain't supposed to admit that, though. Don't you know anything, girl?
I do. I just don't care.
Well, you know, I'd rather drive a team of horses in the field than cook a dinner. Will had a pretty good idea one time when we got married. He said if I do the cooking, he would do the dishes. Well, since it's nothing to boil up some onions, carrots, and green beans with meat in it, I said yes. So we shook on it. Then he started pining for his mother's cooking, roasted chicken, meatloaf, fried chicken, cracklings, dumplings, and pies and cakes, too. Heck, fire, you get in here with all that. I'll raise chicken. I love to raise chickens, and I hate to bake cakes. So I made the roasted chickens, and the meatloaf, and the fried chicken, and the darn dumplings and cracklings. I'd even cook spinach and butter and leave it on a little too long. Brussels sprouts? I'd cut them in half and fry them with just not enough grease.
Excellent.
I boiled milk for the heck of it, too, once, and let it evaporate.
Oh, no.
Yep. Next thing you know, Will's complaining to me about all the dishes he has to do. And why do I have to burn the bottom of every pot, pan, and skillet in the house every time I cook? Oh, he got used to boiled onions and potatoes real fast.
I bet he did.
Still, all told, I think he got the better of that handshake.
Don't they always?
Yep. Strange. How we want to rest when we're working, and when we rest, we can't think about nothing but working. I think you've escaped this fundamental predicament.
Now you know.
You know, maybe you're onto something. I don't know. When I was young, I'd have had nothing to do with you.
Oh.
Well, now I think with the world changing like it is, and a day of work gets you just another day of work, well, what am I doing this for? I tell you, I like to do this now. I'll sit here and talk. If you and Ernest were nearby,
I'll talk to him, Mom. How's that?
Will you?
Yes.
I'm the one made Ernest so ambitious. I made him hate farm work. I made him feel like the whole world would end if he didn't get the chores in. I'd threaten him with a switch. I only had to whip him a few times, though. He learned.
He certainly works hard now, Mom.
There was one time I whipped him for the worst of reasons. A little boy. A baby, almost. He got scared, and I thought it was how you're supposed to raise boys. Put the fear of God in them so they won't be so scared all the time. What a backwards way. What a backwards way. I whipped him. I whipped him without getting the whole story. That sweet boy. That sweet, sweet boy.
Dollars to donuts, they're talking about you.
Hey, no talking about me.
Ernest, do you remember the time I whipped you because you wouldn't walk through the weeds?
Oh, boy. And the horses are approaching the gate.
Let me tell you the story. I better put my apron on, though.
This machine running the whole time?
What?
Sure enough, Mom told her story. The one that everyone had heard before and many times over to boot. But there was just something about that story that needed some context. That would be Ernie's side of things. He went and attached that side to it later that very night.
Would you listen to this for me?
Go ahead.
There's another impression that has come up with me out of childhood. I have a horror of snakes that verges on the irrational. I'm not afraid of being killed by a snake. It isn't that kind of fear. It's a horrible, unnatural mania for getting away. And it is induced equally by a 6-inch garden snake and a 6-foot rattler. Ask my mother. She'll tell you the snake story, probably. In all the years, she's never failed to tell it over again when I come home on a visit. I was a little fella, maybe 4 or 5. My father was plowing at the far end of our farm, half a mile from the house. I was walking along behind the plow, barefooted, in the fresh, soft furrow. He had just started the field and was plowing near a weedy fence row. Red wild roses were growing there. I asked my father for his pocket knife so I could cut some of the roses to take back to the house. He gave it to me and went on plowing. I sat down in the grass and started cutting the roses. Then it happened in a flash. A blue racer came looping through the grass at me. I already had my horror of snakes at that tender age. It must have been born in me. I screamed, threw away the knife, ran as fast as I could. Then I remembered. It was my father's knife. I crept back over the plowed ground till I found it. He had heard me scream and had stopped. I gave him the knife and started back to the house. I approached the house from the west side, where there was an old garden. It's all grown up in high weeds. I stopped on the far side and shouted for my mother. When she came out to see what I wanted, I asked her to come get me. She said I should come on through by myself. I couldn't have done that if it had killed me not to. She ordered me to come through, and I began to cry. She told me if I didn't stop crying and didn't come through, she would whip me. I couldn't stop, and I couldn't come through, so she came and got me, and she whipped me. One of the 2 times I believe that she ever whipped me. That evening when my father came in from the fields, she told him about the crazy boy who wouldn't walk through the weeds and had to be whipped. Then my father told her about the roses and the knife and the snake. It was the roses, I think, that hurt her so. My mother cried for a long time that night after she went to bed. It has been more than 30 years since that happened, but to this day, when I go home, my mother, sooner or later, will say, "Do you remember the time I whipped you because you wouldn't walk through the weeds?" Then she'll tell me the story just as I've told it here. And along toward the end, she always manages to get the hem of her apron up around her eyes, just in case she needs it. And she always does.
Why'd you want to make me cry?
You crying?
Maybe.
Well, good. You like it?
Maybe.
Just maybe?
Of course I like it. You need my approval.
Maybe.
Just come to bed before I whoop you.
Next time on the Ernie Pyle Experiment.
Well, my mother said we had. Man said we hadn't. So, my mother went and got the money, opened the screen door and threw it in his face. He never came back.
Oh, you don't want to start anything with me right now. Your mother was just here,
Was she now?
nagging me about being on perpetual vacation.
Ernie, your mother said you'd be in town.
She's the one to tell most of my secrets to, Phil. I believe you.
That woman is a saint.
That's a myth.
Now, why would you say such a thing?
Well, I just have the whip and switch scars to prove it.
Now, the only myth is that she's a legend, doggammit. And that's a myth worth propagating, isn't it?
Remember the time she threw that wad of dollars at the liniment man?
Yeah, I sure do. She's a righteous woman.
Oh, you don't say.
See you next week, folks. Until then, I'm Dan V. Prescott reminding you that the good road will never end if you can only stay on it.
The Ernie Pyle Experiment is produced at WFIU on the campus of Indiana University. For complete credits of cast and crew for each episode and to find past episodes, visit WFIU.org/Ernie Pyle Podcast. Also, find the Ernie Pyle Experiment wherever you access your media.
WFIU, Bloomington, Indiana. A short editorial from Carrie O'Nanan. This is Carrie O'Nanan. Recently, one of our own, Carrie O'Nanan, has been harassed on the streets of Bloomington, Indiana by young kids, some college students too smart for their own good, and an old man on a bicycle. And carry on and on, they called out to him. Well, we here in the newsroom have it on good authority and popular opinion for this to be a cheap heckle and not funny by any modern standard. Carrie O'Nanan wishes for this to stop and for such childish antics to be questioned. Why, have we Bloomingtonians stooped to such a level where I have to work with Russell McGee on a daily basis? WFIU, Bloomington, Indiana, where you don't need to be an expert if you learn something new every day.
On the road, Ernie washed his own socks and underwear, pressed his own slacks and shirt sleeves. He never expected Jerry would do any of it. But when they went home to Dana, he fell back into the care of his loving mother, who would do all of it, and then some. It was enough to drive a wife to drink, I tell you.
Hello, I'm Ernie Pyle, the Hoosier Vagabond, and this is that girl who rides with me.
I am very wild, Ernest.
Welcome to the Ernie Pyle Experiment, Episode 4, My Mother. Now, let's catch up with Jerry as she sits in Ernie's childhood bedroom talking to her old boyfriend, Jim.
I'm thirsty. You thirsty, Jimbo? You hiding anything? Oh, I got something around here. Well, looky here. Ain't that just the best sound, Jim? Name me another, and you get the next swig. And here you... I'm so tired. I hate when this happens, Jim. Some sort of sleeping sickness or something. I don't know where Ernie went to. His typewriter's empty. Stick a something here beside it. Let's see. Well, looks like he's making the most of our time here. One looks complete and parts of a few others, nah. I'll look these over later. Maria was just here a few minutes ago. She can't give up on us buying a place here. I let her talk. This is the last place I'd ever live. I sure wish we went on to Chicago instead.
Thinking about driving up there, are you?
Oh, you want me to finish that stack of half-baked ideas for you?
Who says they're half-baked? Most of them only been quarter-baked.
I see that.
Well, don't go all in. I mean, you could put some ideas down for me.
Gee, thanks.
Well, get your own column then.
Oh, you don't want to start anything with me right now. Your mother was just here.
Was she now?
Nagging me about being on perpetual vacation. She's telling me about a trip she took to Niagara Falls and she didn't want to go. Did you know that? I don't understand that.
Yeah. Think being used to the road is the same kind of sickness as being used to home?
Don't dash all my hopes, little sad man. You better sit your wandering ass down in that chair. You have a business to run.
Yeah, I know. Can't think of anything. Well, maybe I'll take this machine out and talk to some Say, is this thing on?
Maybe.
You can't do that to people. Turn it off. It's a sneaky business doing that to folks.
It's when a fella gets in a bind that his own ethics and morals get rewritten. In this case, for Ernie, he was feeling bound up tighter than buttermilk in a straw. He needed some ideas. And so it was that on this morning in Dana, Indiana, he turned his pencil around and used the eraser on his list of personal rules.
All right, then. Trying to hide this thing here somewhere so nobody sees it.
Morning, Ernie Pyle.
Well, hello, Clarence Porter. I'm at the Clarence Porter's barbershop in downtown Dana, Indiana.
Ernie, your mother said you were coming.
Oh, howdy, Dick. How's the life insurance game?
What game? Nobody has any money for that.
Well, sorry to hear it.
So am I. So's everybody.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
Nothing. Getting my hair cut.
Me too.
Good day for it.
If you've got
Oh,
any.
is that directed at me? I have some back here behind my ear somewhere.
Ernie, your mother said you'd be in town.
She's the one to tell most of my secrets to, Phil. I believe you.
Hey, looky here. Can you guess what this here stack of papers is?
Looks like a backstock of the Indianapolis Times to me.
And who do you think that funny-looking fella is
Oh,
there?
all right. Looks familiar.
I guess says the Hoosier Vagabond. The Hoosier Vagabond. Clarence, the Hoosier...
Vagabond. Everyone heard you, Phil.
You aren't from Bloomington. A Hoosier, it says.
Boilermaker Vagabond doesn't have any ring of truth to it, Phil.
Because you're always working or because you couldn't get in?
Oh, boy.
You have to be smart to get into Purdue.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you only think you're smart. That school down in Bloomington puts their nose
right.
up and thinks it makes our laws and our culture, and everyone
wind
down there
him up.
just
Here he
sits
goes.
around and thinks and philosophizes.
sure.
But when you need something done, well, that's another story now, ain't it, Mr.
all
Vagabond?
right.
When you need someone to make you a building to do all of that thinking, then where do you go? Purdue, Purdue. Can you imagine a Hoosier thinking a limestone quarry into blocks?
my goodness.
Then trying to guess how to use a pencil,
Oh, just
geometry,
Just stop. You
then
don't know
stacking those blocks into theaters and courthouses and wherever else they need to congregate and do more thinking.
Aren't we all Hoosiers?
Well, I thought so.
How long you in Dana for then, Mr.
Well,
Hoosier
another
Vagabond?
day or so, Phil.
Well, you can see from that stack of papers there, we keep your column and throw the rest away. Even someone from Bloomington ought to realize what an honor that is.
Well, okay then.
That's because we're proud of you.
Here, here.
Well, that's the truth, Pyle.
Well, thank you, boys.
But if you weren't such a damn good writer, we'd throw them all out.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, you write good.
Well,
What's that now?
I write well.
Well, ain't you just as humble as the rest of Bloomington? Trying to confound everybody with your rules. I don't get it.
And you might if you'd gone to Indiana University instead of Purdue.
Oh, all right. Laugh it up. Laugh it up.
Hey, you're up, Ernie.
Oh, okay, Claire. How about a shave, clean up my neck maybe a little over the ears?
What are you going to write next?
You know, fellas, that is a good question. I've been with the folks now for the last 24 hours, and all I can think about is them, so maybe something about my mother, but I don't want to make her too famous.
Hot towel.
Hot towel. Hot towel.
Hot towel!
I was wondering how long it'd take to shut him up.
You ought to tell your mother she needs to bake more cakes. She is the best cake baker around. Jewel and Genevieve Walker's wedding cake she made was the favorite cake I've ever had.
That was over 20 years ago, Dick.
I remember it like it was yesterday. The end of my Sunday tie dipped into the frosting. I smelled like vanilla and lavender for a whole year whenever I put it back on. Oh, boy, she can bake a cake. I tell her every time I see her, but she refuses to make me another.
Maybe it's your funeral.
Well, that'd be my luck.
She voted for Al Smith. I can't get over that. She and Will, too.
Ahead of their time.
Yeah, would you shut up about Hoover, Phil?
Roosevelt lovers. You all think his plan's gonna work? You are dumb. If Hoover had a chance to
He had more than 2 years to do something. Then when it comes time to campaign for the next term, because Roosevelt passed all of his
Hey,
plans
you
like
want to talk about politics? You can do it outside. Let me say something about Maria Pyle that nobody can argue with. Last winter, there was influenza going around. Almost reminded me of 1918, when the Butler twins died and the Johansson baby. Well, that's what got old man Cruppert. Well, last winter, some kids were real sick in town. And your mother, not wanting it to get any worse, she went around helping everybody, making soups and
That's right.
tinctures and
I remember
generally
that.
just helping out whenever someone asked her.
She helped with the body when my Aunt Alpha died. Most people would just make themselves scarce.
Wish she'd make me a cake.
That woman is a saint.
That's a myth.
Now, why would you say such a thing?
Well, I just have the whip and switch scars to prove it, Clarence. That's all.
Quiet now. I can't get the shaving cream in the right places
Oh,
with you
all
turning
right.
your head all the
Okay,
time.
Claire, I'm sorry.
Now, the only myth is that she's a legend, doggammit, and that's a myth worth propagating, isn't it?
For her it is, I'd say.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear, sure. Say, Ernie, have you
Hey,
seen what they're
don't ask a fella questions with a razor on his neck. You want me to pepper you with all sort of inquiry when I shave your ugly face, Phil?
I don't think I'm getting a shave today, Claire.
Well, you oughta. Your face looks great with a nice hot towel stuffed in your mouth.
Oh, go on now.
Your typewriter's making noise, Ernie.
Later that afternoon, when Ernie returned to the house, he found Jerry sleeping. A sleeping wife has its benefits, he always thought. On the one side of things, it is good for getting some writing done uninterrupted. The other side of that Jerry-shaped coin he approached with trepidation, for whenever she began sleeping her days away, all Ernie could see were dark clouds on the horizon. His flight response at that point in time hadn't yet developed into its fight counterpart. That would come 7 years later in North Africa for our intrepid correspondent. Until then, ignoring a fight was a useful tactic. For Ernie, it was best to let sleeping wives lie. So, with nothing else to do, he commandeered boyfriend Jim to see if it could be useful in rounding out his next story idea.
I'm in the kitchen at home, about to surprise Aunt Mary. She's out in the garden, and, well, it looks like she's about ready to come in with the dinner chores, so... What's for dinner?
Oh, meat, potatoes, carrots, and beans.
All the colors of the rainbow,
Boiled to taste. Oh, well, stand up and let me look at you. Oh, I sure miss you, Ernie.
I miss you too, Aunt Mary. I sure do.
Oh, okay, enough of that. Here, snap the ends off these green beans. You know, I'm not sure you know what it's like with you now. Folks over in Indy, I don't even know, talking about your column.
Is that right?
Oh, you bet it is. It's have you read Ernie today? And did you see what he said and what not?
You don't say.
Yeah, you're getting good at it. I consider myself one of the lucky few that get a personal letter from you to boot.
There's more than just a few of you, I can assure you.
Who else do you write to?
I write to you, Mom and Dad, and look, there's just a whole mess of other folks, and I look at it like this. Before I start in on the race, I like to take a few laps around the brickyard first, get the engine warmed up.
Well, that's smart.
Well, that's why you get letters by the pound, my dear Aunt.
Well, if you slowed down, I wouldn't complain. Now, don't do that now. I'm just saying, if you did, I wouldn't complain. I get to feeling obliged as well.
Yeah, sure.
I set and scribble one out to you every day, it seems, at least as fast as they come in.
Really?
Well, sure.
Maybe they're getting lost in transit then?
What? Did you get the one about your mother arguing with Pastor Strader about the new hymnals?
I did not.
Well, what happened to it?
How should I know? What is this story about the hymnals?
Well, same songs, new numbers.
Oh, boy.
Apparently, salesman got to Pastor Strader, convinced him he needed new hymnals. Got every business in town to advertise on the pasted paper inside the front and back cover, and a dozen pages before the table of contents. You get me?
I sure do.
So everybody paid $5. Seed and feed, grocery, Clarence's barber
Clarence?
shop.
Well, he doesn't even go to church.
He knows what side his bread is buttered on.
I suppose so.
And the church didn't get $1 from the selling of those
You don't
advertisements.
say.
Just free hymnals that we didn't need.
Yeah.
Pastor Strader's undoing is that How Great Thou Art is now number 287, when it used to be 39.
Number 39, sure.
So when he called out the hymn to sing, everyone went to 39, and then all of heck broke loose.
Oh, no.
No, I don't know why everybody knows the words, but there was so much shuffling in the pews. Oh, folks trying to find the new page. Carolyn had to restart the intro on the organ at least 5 times. Well, then your mother saw the advertisements.
Oh, no.
She stood right up on the pew.
Oh, you've got to be
She
joking.
did, I tell you.
Well, what was Dad doing?
Oh, well, he went the other way. He sunk as far as he could to disappear.
I bet.
And everybody sat down and got real quiet. And then she said, My house shall be called a house of prayer, but ye have made it a den
boy.
of thieves. And she marched right out of there.
Oh, boy, I tell you.
Now, I laid that all out in a letter to you last April.
This is the first I've heard it.
Well, and the very next day I wrote you another, and you didn't write back about any of that one either. That one was about the liniment man. Remember the time she threw that wad of dollars at the liniment man?
Yeah, I sure do. She's a righteous woman.
Oh, you don't say.
So both letters lost?
Well, now, how can that be? Let's see. I get your letters delivered here in Dana. When I pick them up from your mother, I give her my letters back to you to send off for me. Do you think your mother
I think you
is...
may have an editor.
Oh! Maria! Maria!
Someone's in trouble.
Do you think he's pushing too hard on those typewriter keys? Ernie is working in his bedroom. It's late at night. What we can't see is that Jerry is asleep in the room with him. My guess is that he wants to wake her up. But if he tousled her hair or tickled her feet, she'd awake like Vesuvius. I think he wants her help or her blessing. But the sound of his typewriter keys hitting paper is just a lullaby to her ears.
Why don't you ever just use the paper release?
I'm
You
sorry.
woke me up.
I'm sorry. Shh. Do you want to hear the latest?
You're only getting one out. Why don't you do one better?
If you think you can do it so fast, you step in here and I'll take a nap.
What the hell else is a girl supposed to do around here?
Shh. Jerry, you're going to wake up the whole house.
I don't care. Shh. What?
All right, listen to me now, please. Now, I'm not trying to start a fight, all right?
Oh, we're fighting now,
No,
are we?
we're not fighting right now.
What the hell else do you think
Keep
I'm going
it
to
down.
do when you
Shh.
start a conversation with that? Sure, really calms a person down, lays their hackles right to bed just before
No,
you yank off the covers.
I am just trying to get a point across.
Just say it, you bird brain.
All right, then. Are you headed down the path?
Oh, what path?
The path that starts with you sleeping a lot and ends with you out in a
No,
ditch somewhere.
I'm not. I'm fine.
Define fine.
Fine? Oh, of superior or best quality, of high or highest grade, choice,
All
excellent
right.
or admirable,
All right.
informal in an excellent
keep it
manner,
down.
very
Keep
well,
it
fine,
down.
a sum of money imposed
I
as a
got it.
penalty,
Fine.
a fee
Fine.
paid by a feudal
You're
tenant at
fine.
the end
Sure.
of a
Very
composition
well.
that
Very good.
compromises
I'm glad I
several-
asked.
I'd be finer if you go get us some more of this here white lightning sauce.
Give me some of that.
You're just mad. You're mad because you need a boss, and that's me. You have a deadline, young man.
Do you want to hear this or not?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My mother would rather drive a team of horses in the field than cook a dinner, but in her lifetime, she has done very little of the first and too much of the latter. She has had only 3 real interests: my father, myself, and her farm work. Nothing else makes much difference to her. And yet, When I left home in my late teens to be gone forever, except for brief visits, she was content for me to go because she knew I was not happy on the farm. My mother is living proof that happiness is within yourself. For a whole lifetime, she's done nothing but work too hard. And yet I'm sure she's been happy. She loves the farm there outside Dana, Indiana. She wouldn't think of moving to town, as the other retired farmers do. She'd rather stay home now and milk the cows than go to the state fair. She's the best chicken raiser and cake baker in the neighborhood. She loves to raise chickens and hates to bake cakes. My mother probably knows as little about world affairs as any woman in our neighborhood, yet she is the broadest-minded and most liberal of the lot. I don't ever remember her telling me I couldn't do something. She always told me what she thought was right and what was wrong. Then it was up to me. She is a devout Methodist and a prohibitionist. Yet, she and my father voted for Al Smith in 1928 because they thought he was a better man than Hoover. Some of their neighbors wouldn't speak to him for months because they voted for a Catholic and a wet. But they didn't care. They're always doing things they think are right. My mother has quite a temper. I remember once when the liniment man came and said we hadn't paid him for a bottle of liniment. Well, my mother said we had. The man said we hadn't. So my mother went and got the money, opened the screen door and threw it in his face. He never came back. She always tells people just what she thinks. A good many of our neighbors have deservedly felt the whip of her tongue, and they pout over it a while, but whenever they're in trouble, they always thaw out and come asking for help, and of course they get it. My mother is the one the neighbors always call on when someone gets sick or dies or needs help with of any kind. She's practically raised a couple of kids besides myself. She's always been the confidant of the young people around here. My mother doesn't realize it, but her life has been the life of a real prairie pioneer. You could use her in a book or paint her picture as one of the sturdy stock of the ages who have always done the carrying on when the going was tough. She isn't so well anymore, but she seems to work harder than ever. We try to get her to rest, but she says, "Oh, the work has to be done." We say, "Yes, but you don't have to do it. Supposing you were gone, the work would still be here, but you wouldn't have to do it." But she doesn't understand what we mean.
It's good.
Thank you. Is there a better way to just say liniment man?
Also, like traveling salesman?
I wanted to be more of a
specific, yeah. Vendor, merchant, trade. Oh, peddler.
peddler.
Mm-hmm. Peddler. What's more appropriate? Liniment peddler.
No,
I think liniment man. I don't know. I understand why you're
thinking there might be a better one. Yeah. Thinking too hard on this?
Mm-hmm. Just keep it. Say, are you going to do anything with the stuff from the barbershop?
I don't know. I would. Probably would if this thing didn't record everything. I feel like I'm competing to tell a story with the darn thing.
Have a contest against it, like John Henry.
And didn't he die?
Yeah. Let's turn this thing off.
Next time on the Ernie Pyle Experiment.
I was talking to Camp Miller, and he told me about his storefront window getting busted out.
Yeah?
It seems someone drove through it.
Yeah?
Have you seen the front end of your dad's car?
Speaking of bad drivers, what do you think made Dad drive through that window in town?
He told you?
Well, I saw his fender. He told me just that he did it, no details.
Well, then you know more than I do. Why don't you go down and ask Kent Miller at the dry goods? I'm interested in that answer myself.
I watched the whole thing happen from right here.
Yeah, okay.
Father turned in the road, kept right on turning, hopped the curb, and right through the window.
I don't understand that. So what made you a jackass for driving through the window?
If I told you, you'd probably put it in a story in the newspaper.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
The heck you wouldn't.
Dad, I would never do that.
See you next week, folks. Until then, I'm Dan V. Prescott, reminding you that the good road will never end if you can only stay on it.
The Ernie Pyle Experiment is produced at WFIU on the campus of Indiana University. For complete credits of cast and crew for each episode and to find past episodes, visit WFIU.org/Ernie Pyle Podcast. Also, find the Ernie Pyle Experiment wherever you access your media.
WFIU, Bloomington, Indiana. I'm Carrie O'Nanan, and now I'm also Carrie Grizzly Bear Spray. Go ahead, Cupcake. Make me spray.